Today we're focusing on the latest NHL trade rumors, which we'll be discussing Marc-Andre Fleury in Vegas. We've got Viktor Arvidsson with Nashville, an update on Seth Jones with the Columbus Blue Jackets. We've also got updates from other teams like the Coyotes and Connor Garland, the Philadelphia Flyers, and others. We have some free agent rumors and some more news concerning the Stanley Cup Final. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a ton of news to talk about here today, so you certainly want to pay close attention and watch all the way through because there's a lot of little tidbits that you might find interesting here from start to finish. Before we jump into the news, though, there was a piece of news this morning that I just wanted to extend my condolences to Bruins forward David Pastrnak and his partner Rebecca, who apparently had their infant son passed away, only a few days old. Of course, don't know any details around the circumstances, but certainly no parent deserves to go through that. Extremely heartbreaking news for the young couple. And like I said, I just want to extend my condolences. Really sad news, and I don't wish that on anybody. We did get news today that the Seattle Kraken have announced their AHL affiliate for their first ever NHL season coming up this fall. They are going to have an agreement with the Charlotte Checkers. Of course, the Charlotte Checkers, the former affiliate of the Hurricanes where Ron Francis used to work, so probably a lot of contacts and familiar faces there. They're going to send a limited amount of players. The Florida Panthers, who are the main NHL affiliate, will provide the head coach. The Kraken can have input on providing an assistant coach. They'll have one goalie, and I think it was 8 skaters or something to that effect. And anyways, it's an arrangement just for 1 year because they already know the future plans. Their AHL affiliate will eventually be in Palm Springs, California, but of course that arena and everything is not going to be ready for the start of this year, so that will be effective next season. So they've got a short-term arrangement there figured out for some of their players who don't make their NHL roster. Now, there are reports circulating, which is not yet confirmed, so don't take this as 100% guaranteed, but there's rumors that the Montreal Canadiens are going to be able to increase capacity for games 3 and 4 at the Bell Center. There was reports earlier indicating that government officials in Quebec were going to increase capacity to 10,500. However, as of even 15 minutes ago, before I recorded this, the Montreal Canadiens put out a statement saying that they're still working with government officials and that they cannot confirm any rumors that have been circulating on social media regarding an increased attendance number. So it's looking promising, I guess, based on if those rumors are anywhere near true. But like I said, at this point, a lot of provinces throughout Canada are in the process of reducing or in some cases eliminating restrictions due to COVID-19. And I know that things are certainly gradually improving a lot in Quebec with vaccination numbers and all that kind of stuff. So it wouldn't be shocking and surprising if they do increase the number, but we will have to wait for official word from the government officials on that. Hopefully before we get to game 3 or maybe in the next day or so, we'll be able to confirm those reports. But that's what things are looking like as of right now. Now, some free agent rumors, some RFA and UFA talk here. When it comes to restricted free agent defensemen, there is some big names out there that need new deals this offseason, and some guys that are going to be top elite level talent for the foreseeable future in the NHL. So we're looking at guys like Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes, and Miro Heiskanen are all the ones that were mentioned here that all seem to be eyeing the contract of Senators defenseman Thomas Chabot as being the comparable deal that they're looking for, or in some cases even a little bit more. Apparently all three view themselves of at least a high ceiling of Chabot, if not higher. So we're likely looking at 8 times 8, which is what Chabot got for all three, or like I said, maybe even a little bit more, to be completely honest. Now, I understand with some of these 3 players, though, you're looking at more of a future projection. I'd say in the case of Makar that he's easily right now ahead of Chabot. I don't know if we'd put Hughes and Heiskanen in that category just yet. Will they be? There's a good chance they will be. They're exciting, very talented, high-end young players, but still, they're in a situation where I think getting them a comparable contract does make sense, because I do think, like I said, that they will at the very least be a comparable, if not surpassing. So if they sign an 8x8 deal, considering where their league revenues are expected to go as the league recovers over the next 7-8 years, that could turn out, especially near the second half, to possibly be bargains if these players turn out to be what we expect them to be. But of course, there is some risk there, and I guess we'll have to see. But negotiations are ongoing on all fronts, but that seems to be kind of what they're looking at. Now, one quick UFA note, which is a tad bit surprising, but not not too shocking, but apparently, according to Elliot Friedman, all things are positive and pointing to the reunion of Wayne Simmons and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Looks like the Wayne train will be making another stop in TO for another year. I would hope that it's under $1 million. I mean, clearly he signed for a little bit more than $1 million last year. Had a good start, but then he got hurt, and it was really, to me, never as effective or the same since then. He really was invisible in the playoffs, in my opinion. And I know when they talk about wanting that killer instinct and that fight that they need to take that next step, I mean, he theoretically should be a guy to provide that. It's hard to say at his current age if he can actually provide that, but apparently, according to Friedman, the things are not done, but they're inching closer. We could have an announcement on a Simmons extension here in the very near future. When it comes to another top RFA, we've got Carolina Hurricanes forward Andrei Svechnikov, who is expected to get a deal done with the Canes, and it's expected not to hopefully take too long. But Friedman did mention in his blog today that they had previously offered, I should say, an 8-year deal at $7.5 million, which Svechnikov and his agent did turn down. Now, Svechnikov's another great young player with a lot of talent who's really not at his prime yet, of course. So certainly that type of deal is maybe another 8x8 deal or something to that effect. Very well could be on the books for them in that regard. We'll have to wait and see, but it's certainly one of their top priorities in Carolina to get done this offseason. Obviously, what his contract will end up being will impact what else they can do and build around him and the other core players. So I know he's probably hoping for something comparable to Sebastian Aho to get something done and over with early in the offseason so he can chill and not have to worry about it. But certainly it's going to be at least $8 million per year based on what he and his agent are looking for right now. Now, before we jump any further into today's trade rumors, I just want to pause for a moment and acknowledge our channel sponsor, Manscaped. Top Shelf Hockey is proud to be sponsored by Manscaped. Of course, with Manscaped, we have a special offer here for all Top Shelf Hockey viewers where you can get 20% off and free shipping into all orders at manscaped.com. Now, of course, Manscaped just launched a brand new Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which is a fantastic product. They've taken a level up here, even again with the skin-safe replaceable blades. It's waterproof, it's wireless charging, has a travel lock on it, as well as a nice light so you don't miss what you're doing. So certainly a terrific product. Now, many people associate Manscaped with their trimmers, which is certainly kind of their top product, but they do have a lot of other great options as well, including what they call the Weed Whacker, which is another trimmer for your ears and nose. And they have a variety of deodorants and sprays as well, which also keep you fresh and are terrific as well. So certainly Manscaped has a lot to offer, and we certainly highly recommend all of their products. So check out manscaped.com and use promo code TSH for 20% off and free shipping. So thanks very much for watching that promotional video. I greatly appreciated jumping into the latest trade talk. A lot of this comes from Elliot Friedman's 31 Thoughts blog. A little bit comes from a few other sources, but majority of it from Friedman here. I want to start with Marc-Andre Fleury in the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, clearly, Vegas, as we know, has a lot of tough decisions to make this offseason, and whether or not they continue with this two-headed goalie monster that they have right now in Fleury and Leonard is a big part of that. They both make a lot of money. Fleury's down to 1 year, getting older, still a fantastic goaltender, had a phenomenal year, carried the team quite far in the playoffs, and certainly can still play at a high level. There's no doubt about it. But that $7 million he's earning very well could help this team get better by putting it elsewhere, especially as I mentioned in a few other times, and we're going to be talking about in the Vegas offseason video coming up here in the next 24 hours, is that they really need a top center. That's their weakness. Down the middle, Vegas is not as strong as they need to be a serious cup contender, and I do expect Vegas to address that, whether like we've talked about with Jack Eichel or other potential centers that are top 6 capable. Very well, something is going to give there, and they're going to have a better center depth. They have no choice if they really want to take a step up. Now, last year, as we talked about before, too, they were really, really close to sending Fleury back to Pittsburgh. Jim Rutherford wanted to reacquire their goaltender. Obviously, even back then, they didn't have a ton of confidence to go in with DeSmith and Jerry as their goaltending tandem for the current season. We've seen good spots and not so good spots this past year, and I think new GM Ron Hextall and President Brian Burke have seen enough, and a change is definitely going to be made. Doesn't mean it's 100% going to be Fleury, but something is going to happen between the pipes with the Penguins, and it wouldn't be surprising, according to Friedman, if this is a trade rumor and talk that kind of resurfaces and very well could get reignited here. Now, obviously, Vegas may have to retain a little bit of salary to make things work for Pittsburgh. I think it's fair to say as well, a goalie would definitely go back the other way. Whether it's Jerry or DeSmith, I don't know. But certainly, I think from Vegas' standpoint, they'd probably want DeSmith because of the contract, but they're going to have to probably wait a little bit and see how the expansion draft plays out too, or maybe they'll do this ahead of time, because obviously Vegas is going to have an exception here to not have to worry about this, but Pittsburgh does, so they might want to see how things line up for the expansion draft as well before they do any serious trading. But still, the one thing that seems to prevent the deal from happening last offseason, at least the sense we get from hearing all the different sources, is that owner Bill Foley of the Vegas Golden Knights, who absolutely adores and loves Fleury, is kind of the one who stepped in and kiboshed that from what I've heard. So we'll see if they re-explore this. Bill Foley, as much as he loves Fleury, I think he'd love a Stanley Cup even more. He'd love to have Fleury be a part of it, but at this point, something has to give. And this doesn't make sense to trade the much younger Leonard, who's under contract, for a less amount for a longer term when you get one more year of Fleury. I mean, if they could keep him at a reduced rate or something, I bet you all parties involved would love that, and he probably would do it too. But you know what? It's just likely not going to happen. So don't be surprised to hear the Florida Penguin rumors pick up pace and maybe even finally get consummated this offseason. Now, Frank Seravalli's talked a little bit further about Connor Garland with the Coyotes. Now, we had talked about a while back here in the last couple of weeks that things were progressing towards possibly seeing Garland be traded out of the Coyotes organization, but he went a little further today, indicating that basically the Coyotes GM, Bill Armstrong, had asked Garland and his agent to present or submit a couple of contract proposals for them to consider for the pending restricted free agent. And he did that back on May 20th, and they haven't had a reply, an acknowledgement, absolutely nothing. It's been nothing but crickets on the Coyotes side of things. So Seravalli feels, based on the lack of communication and the absolute ignoring that we're seeing, that says that they have no interest in retaining the player, and that they were probably just doing that just to kind of, get them off their back, get things aside, because I'm sure that Garland's agent was looking to get negotiations started, and clearly they don't seem too interested in that. But he's been arguably their top forward from a production level for the past couple of years. It seems kind of weird to me, but I guess now that he's coming out of his entry-level deal and he's going to earn himself a good raise, they want to move on. This doesn't make sense. I know they want to trade Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I know they could very well move the last year of Phil Kessel as well, but Garland's a young player. Why would they not want to keep this guy and have him be one of the pieces that they build around? It's just mind-boggling to me. They still need a head coach in Arizona as well, which there's still some people that are, apparently being interviewed. I'm not sure when we're going to get an answer on that situation as well, but still, Garland appears to be a goner in Arizona. I am sure there will be no shortage of interest. The fact that he's going to be needing his second contract shouldn't be too expensive, but still, obviously, there was a lot of interest in this guy at the trade deadline, and maybe the Coyotes were making it more known than people realized and how available he actually was. It wasn't just a scenario of teams inquiring because they wondered what Arizona might do. We didn't really get that kind of feeling before, but you know what? Maybe that was the case, and Arizona really just wants to move on from this guy, which is hard to understand. But I would imagine there'll be a lot of interest in this player, given the fact that he's young, not going to be super expensive, and could be a key contributor. Now, according to Friedman and others, it looks as though the Flyers seem to be fairly fixated on trying to figure out a way to make a Seth Jones trade a reality. Now, of course, we know they want a top right-shot defenseman. That's no secret. It's been known for some time. They really need to replace what Matt Niskanen brought to the pair with he and Ivan Provorov. It was a big blow to the team, losing him unexpectedly this year, and they've been struggling to find a way to replace him ever since, and this could be their solution. Now, there's some other right-shot defensemen on the market in free agency, but I'm not really sure that they're the type of defenseman that the Flyers want. Not only do they want somebody who can provide some offense, they really want somebody who can be stronger in their own end, also play a physical style of the game, provide that grit, and just, kind of stabilize and balance things out back there so Provorov can be more of the offensive contributor, not have to worry so much about the defensive side of the game, because obviously, that's what Niskanen did for him. When Niskanen was his partner, he had one of his better seasons. So certainly it makes sense why they'd be interested in Jones. The big question is, will Jones sign an extension? And the Flyers are humming hard about trying to figure out, will they make this trade even if they can't get an extension worked out? It really boils down to the price tag, to be honest. I would think that Columbus is going to be looking for a pretty good return on Jones, and if they're not getting the offers that they want, they very well might keep him going to camp and trade him sometime before the deadline. That's a real possibility too. He could go as a rental later if he doesn't go now. But, I would think teams would rather have him now than later to have a whole season to get better and get used to him. And There's just so much more sense, but at the same time, what's the price? That's the bottom line here. But the Flyers appear to be one of the most interested teams, and that rumor is not going away, and it seems as though they're trying real hard to figure out a way to make it happen. Now, another veteran center who could find himself possibly on the move is Adam Henrique in Anaheim. Now, there's no guarantee he gets traded because that contract of his might prove to be very difficult. They could possibly look at retaining some salary, but it looks as though a big part of his future is going to be decided by Captain Ryan Getzlaf and whether or not he returns. Ryan Getzlaf is a UFA. It's not quite really known yet if he's going to continue playing. Is he going to sign with the Ducks? Is he going to move on? Nobody really knows what the future holds for Ryan Getzlaf, but if they do re-sign him, it doesn't matter what kind of term we're looking at, probably a shorter term deal regardless of what he does, if he does play, that it's more likely than not that they would try to move Henrique. They don't really need Henrique and Getzlaf both to provide that leadership and top, veteran center iceman on the team. They can go with a more of a younger group. They're still trying to make some other trades. They're heavily involved in talks with like Eichel and Reinhart and those other guys. So there's going to be other changes anyway. So certainly an Adam Henrique contract could end up on the move regardless. But if Getzlaf does not return, then it's more likely that Bob Murray would consider retaining him if, just to have a veteran around in the forward group like that who can provide that leadership. But otherwise, if Getzlaf's there, he's very well going to find himself on the go. So we'll see. I don't know. There's a lot of teams out there with an appetite for that kind of contract. So difficult to say. But I know the Sabres or some teams might have no choice but to take back a bad contract and an Eichel trade too. So we know that the Ducks are major players in those negotiations, and that very well could end up being part of it. Apparently, the New Jersey Devils are very open to trading their first-round draft pick in this year's draft, which is the number 4 pick overall, but they will only do it if they can get themselves a real solid top young defenseman. So obviously, we know the Devils need blue liners, and I think that it's quite possible if they keep that pick, they're likely going to take Jack Hughes' brother, Luke Hughes, would be my guess, assuming he's available at the 4 spot, which I think is, relatively decent chance they could do that. I'm not sure he'd be top 3, but it is possible. However, they are open to it as well. I don't think the Devils would rush out and make this kind of trade right away. I think that if that deal did happen, that would be something we'd see on the draft floor, like on draft day, right before they're scheduled to pick. They'd see how the first couple picks go. They'd probably have a few trade offers in their back pocket that they can consider. And if they, can't get who they want, maybe they go the trade route instead. So I think it's possible. I don't really have any names of anybody that they're linked to per se, but if teams have a defenseman that meet that criteria, that they'd be willing to trade up for that 4th overall pick, New Jersey will certainly consider it. And lastly, apparently, Viktor Arvidsson's another name to watch. Now, we saw a lot of players and names from the Nashville Predators organization really surface as trade targets near the NHL trade deadline last year. But that was usually a little bit before, though, the deadline, before things turned around for them. I mean, we had guys like Matthias Ekholm, Dante Fabro, Philip Forsberg, Viktor Arvidsson. A whole bunch of them were rumored to be available for the right deal, right price. And of course, they started winning like crazy and made the playoffs, so they didn't do much of anything at the deadline. Now there's word they might re-sign Ekholm, but there is word now that they could still trade some players and kind of reshuffle here, because even though they made the playoffs, I think it's fair to say that they understand they're still not in a position of strength to really be a solid playoff contender just yet. They need to make some more changes. They have some guys there that need to probably get moved on, but the problem is the guys they'd probably prefer to trade are the ones with bad contracts. Like, you're not getting Ryan Johansson and Matt Duchene, who both make $8 million, likely to get moved, because nobody's going to want to take that on. So a guy like Arvidsson is going to give you more value. And you know what? I think a lot of teams would certainly consider him, where he's only making $4.25 for 3 more years. That's a pretty good deal. If he can get back to scoring his 30-goal type of season like he had a couple of years ago, then that's just found money for most NHL GMs. So hard to say. He's not linked to any particular teams here as of yet, but we know there's a good amount of teams looking for top 6 forwards. He could certainly fill that role, and the Predators do have him available for trade if teams want to inquire on his services. So let me know your thoughts on everything discussed here today. Let me your comments down below. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news and rumors in all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.